Racing, testosterone-filled men competing to see who can cover a quarter mile from a dead stop the fastest. This sport took off after World War II. It started on the streets of America and quickly moved to abandoned airstrips that were used during World War I and World War II. These safe yet crude strips of tarmac fueled the speed junkies' appetite and gave birth to organizations such as the National Hot Rod Association, NHRA, International Hot Rod Association, IHRA, and the American Hot Rod Association, AHRA. Competitions and rules within these organizations kept racers and cars to specific classes, aiding in fair competition. What these organizations failed to yield was fairness to women. At the time, women were thought to be too fragile to put in a race car. They had no business being in a man's sport. It was one thing for a woman to bring men fresh drinks after sitting in a hot car racing, but by no means should they trade spots. Shirley Muldowney broke boundaries, being the first woman to have ever been licensed by the NHRA to compete in the gas dragster classes. This was a line of work known only by men, and she was willing to take them head-on. She had no fear of the cars capable of reaching upwards of 150 miles an hour, nor the intimidation factor of competing against all men. She took the NHRA by storm, winning many match races, moving on to involve herself in drag racing sanctions such as the AHRA and IHRA, where she won many more events. Shirley moved up in chassis type as well, going to funny cars, then eventually top fuel rail-style dragsters. She was the first woman to go faster than 6.0 elapsed time and over 249 miles an hour in the quarter. Shirley may not have sewn the American flag together during the time of war, but she was on the front lines of another battle, a battle that opened the door for many other women in drag racing history. Shirley Muldowney was the driving force behind women entering the field of drag racing. She was not only the first woman to obtain a license for the NHRA, competing in top fuel, but she began to gain notoriety in a profession dominated by men, effectively deteriorating the notion women should be at home and not in a dragster. Shirley's career not only provides a snapshot of tensions faced by women in drag racing, but her successes prove women do have a place in the sport equal to that of men, helping to advance women to equal rights in our society. During Shirley's 40-year career, she fought a lot of battles. She fought to get rid of outhouses and have bathrooms for both sexes. She fought for food vendors so that there was clean food and clean water and drink for spectators and participants. She fought to have organization of spectators for bleachers and places for them to stand and sit. Shirley helped to reduce segregation on the racetrack. She fought to open doors for other female drivers as well.
I can remember when I used to come, the only thing that was available to me, for creature comforts was an outhouse. And there used to be 100 guys standing out, and when I'd come out of that outhouse at Columbus with cameras, that used to hurt. And I fought it for years about, hey, let's step up and get, real restaurants, food that's edible. And I went after stuff like that, and that's how I made enemies. They hated me. They hated listening to a woman.
Shirley proved women were able to compete in drag racing, with many achievements in her 40-year career. She first received her license in 1965. She was the first woman to break 6-second ET. She was voted Top Fuel Driver of the Year twice. She won Winston World Points 3 times. She was the only driver to do so. She was voted into the 250 mile an hour club. There were 4 others, but she was the only one to do it 5 times. She was named by New York Senate as one of 30 women of distinction, along with Eleanor Roosevelt and Susan B. Anthony. She was the first woman in the 5-second ET. She was also the first woman to run a 4-second elapsed time at 310 mile an hour. She was also a 9-time Hall of Fame inductee. She finally retired in 2003.
All I can say about all the things that were, directed to me because I was a lady driver, but it was more so because I was a lady driver that kicked their tail.
Big Daddy Don Garlitz, who originally signed for Shirley's license in 1965, would end up being her biggest rival. He felt that she had no place in a race car after some time. It's rumored that it was because she ended up beating him and putting him on a trailer 3 times in 1 week. The issue between the two would stem for more than 25 years. Eventually, the two of them would end up coming back together on one team.
That means that relationship has come a long, long way. I have to ask you if all the horror stories, all the terrible things that Don Garlits is reputed to have said about you when you became the first woman top fuel racer are true.
And that I have said about him,
Well,
they're all true. All the stories are true. We were nose to nose in the early days and in the 70s when we match raced, and it was the man against the woman and vice versa, and this ladies' liberation and all of that, but it still brought people in the gate.
Sure.
That's what we were attempting to do, aside from winning the race.
But was it real? Was there really a bitterness in that rivalry?
Of course.
Yeah.
Not bitterness, but I wasn't going to give him any slack, and he certainly didn't approve of me out there because I didn't tinker on the engines. Yeah. And it was a good rivalry. I think it was good for the sport overall.
How did it change? How did you earn his respect?
When I started whipping him.
Mm-hmm.
And once he was quoted as saying, "She whipped me like a Texas baby," and that got a lot of press.
I knew that eventually ladies would come along and fit in, find a spot. It would be easier for them because the hard work was already done. The cars.
Today, many women enjoy participating in the sport of drag racing. Viveka Everstrat, top fuel. Anjali Sampi, pro stock motorcycle. Ashley Force, who is John Force's daughter, top fuel. Karen Stouffer, pro stock motorcycle. Melanie Troxel, top fuel funny car. Shirley Anderson, top fuel. That's just a few of the women that are participating in the sport of drag racing today. Shirley Muldowney definitely made changes happen in drag racing. She helped remove the barrier that was keeping women from drag racing. She pushed for privacy of women with bathrooms. Shirley helped the sport with food and drink vendors. Shirley also proved that women could be just as competitive as men in the sport of drag racing. Shirley helped change the face of drag racing throughout her 40-year career. She fought through the discrimination women felt in the sport, successfully becoming a star, allowing women to become equal to the men in the sport, helping to further progress women in their rights.